This is Jordan Tower with JT News. Make sure you smash that like button, smash that subscribe button. Okay, so the Diddy trial is going on today. It's been a few hours, and I'm sure we have plenty to read through right now. We're going to skim through some of it because these lawyers be asking the just the most detailed. Like, did you have a pencil in 2005? You know, what not was it a number 2 pencil? You know, it's like it gets a little crazy. Okay, so let's see, let's get right into this. Okay, so U.S. Combs week 2, day 5. All right, so all rise. Then eventually the defense application with regard to Dawn Richards, who is Danity Kane, right? And I think she was on Last Train to Paris too, right? She was, anyways. Richard, Miss Gergos, opening statement opened the door to this testimony. As Mr. James, the testimony would be inadmissible, absent, and more. AUSA, as I argued in my letter, note Judge Samaritan ruled orally on letters that are not in the docket. Although they are clearly judicial documents, Intercity first challenged to this in docket. It says, by email of chambers of ECF, this Honorable Arun Subramanian District Judge. Let's see. Dear Judge, Intercity Press has been covering the caption case like many others since its indictment this morning before the jury came in. Both government and defense referred to multiple communications to the court about evidentiary and issues, but these are not public dockets on PACER. This application, a letter motion, argues that many, if not all, of these judicial documents to which public and press have right to access, they should not be put in the docket now and going forward in this trial. Then they issue some stuff. It deemed necessary is now to request to intervene. See, they're trying to be too secretive when it's all right to know what's going on. Okay, so the judge says the same brand of testimony that was objected to on Friday. Does the government expect Miss Richard to say that she was heard and saw? Government says yes. The judge says that would be permissible, just like testimony in the recording studio. The judge. And then the government says personal assistants were with Mr. Combs 20 hours a day. Their testimony is admissible. Just as my concern that there are many other ways to get this evidence in. What Mr. James would add is just postscript. Then Combs' lawyer says, on the David James issue, this defeats the whole purpose of the hearsay objection. The government argued that it's all admissible because the job descriptions are so vague. We contend these are personal matters. The judge says, let me focus you on the assault of the chef. Mr. James learns from a member of the security detail that Mr. Combs assaulted the chef. Wouldn't that be in the scope of employments? Combs says, I don't know what relevance this has to the racketeering. Exactly. Like, yeah, you know, Diddy has some crazy allegations from chefs. You look them up. He's had to settle out with many of them. Like some made him bring in the chef bring in sandwiches while he was having sex naked. Like that's just one instance. I'm gonna defer to Miss Westermore, the Combs lawyer says, and it says on the other witness. Combs' lawyer Westmoreland says, Mr. Richard claims that Mr. Combs assaulted Miss Ventura right in front of her. These are alleged threats, are nowhere in the close proximity of an alleged assault. We have to distinguish between the Danity Kane and the Diddy Dirty Money eras. Because, okay, so she was on both. Dawn Richards. So she was in Dirty Money, I guess, too. So it's just, and Mr. Pierre telling her, where are you going to? I don't see how that construed as a threat. Judge says, let me think about it. Then the judge says, we have an application from the press. The emails he put in the record. I am directing you to put them together and put them on the docket by next Tuesday. And after that, on a weekly basis. How long is this trial going to go? How many witnesses do they have? Here is the inner city press filing challenging the judicial documents not going into the docket at all. Now they will, but on a weekly delay, maybe requiring another filing. Oh, this is inner city press filing. Okay. Inner city press has been covering the capture case like many others. This morning, the jury came in, and both government and defense referred to multiple communications to the court about evidentiary and other issues. But these are not in the public docket in PACER. This application is to motion. Okay, so they're trying to keep all this stuff in. Interesting. Which it should be. Jury entering. Okay, so the jury enters, and now we're going to get on with it. So the government says, when Mr. Combs told you people could go missing, how did you interpret that? Don Richard from Danity Kane and Dirty Money says that people could die. I couldn't believe the beginning of this journey was to us. It was so crazy. Are you talking about Diddy, Dirty Money? She says yes. And this is the government asking her these questions. What did you observe? That he would drag her and kick her on the porch in the mouth. What would prompt these acts of violence to Cassie? Objection, overruled. And then she says, when she would speak up for herself. Who is this? Is the security that witnessed these things? Richard, D-Rock, and Bonds. We've seen Bonds talk a lot about Diddy. D-Rock hasn't really said much. So D-Rock and Bonds, that's Roger Bonds. Remember, he did that interview with Vlad. He did one with Piers Morgan. He's been pretty vocal about stuff. He punched Cassie. Let's see. In the residence, what happened? Did he punch Cassie? She came to the bathroom crying. You could see she was upset, like hurt. They object, sustained. It says, why'd you remain with Miss Ventura after this incident? She says, I wanted her to feel supported. The government says, what's this? She says, the Central Park event. Cassie and sunglasses in Don Richard. 2. Why did you wear them? Solidarity, she said. The next assault, who was there? She says, D-Rock, Capricorn Clark, and Harv Pierre. Who is Mr. Pierre? She says, at Bad Boy answering to Sean Combs. A Bad Boy answering to Sean Combs. He was the president of Bad Boy Recording Company. He says, did they do anything? She says, none of us did anything. He says, when we drove back to L.A., he slapped Cassie in the mouth and told her to shut the F up. How did the passengers respond? We stayed silent for the rest of the ride. I asked myself, if he did that to someone he supposedly loved, would he do that to an employee? So I'd approach Mr. Combs with softness. Government says, did you try to intervene in the relationship? Don Richard says, no, for my own safety. The government says, do you see Mr. Combs using drugs? She says, yes, weed, ketamine, Molly, cocaine. AUSA opioids? Don Richard says, that I never saw. Government says, who brought him the drugs? Don Richard says, one stop, he had it all, including Plan B birth control. Government, did you see Mr. Combs with guns? She said, yes, handguns on his lower back. Government, who asked for had gun? Who asked had guns? Who else had guns that you meant? And then it says, Don Richards, security, D-Rock, and Bonds. Government, what did you do after Bad Boy? She says, sing. Well, whenever I get the momentum, I'd get a FaceTime from him. Government says, how would you speak to him? Don Richards says, very soft. I'd always call him bro. Government, why did you not disclose the abuse you'd seen? Don Richards says, I was told not to by Mr. Combs and Harv Pierre. Government, when did you speak out? Don Richard, 2024. Don Richard, I saw Miss Ventura take the stand and tell the truth. Mr. Combs, Westwood. Objection. They object, but sustained. Then it says, Don Richard. Yes. Judge Cross. Then now Diddy's lawyers are cross-examining her. You were aware of there was motion to dismiss your lawsuit? She says, I have civil lawyers. Then he says, you sat with prosecutors and allegations have changed? Don Richard says, I've been consistent. Then Combs' lawyer says, you testified. He attempted to hit her about the eggs. Wait. You testified he attempted to hit her about the eggs, and Miss Ventura dropped down to a fetal position, right? Richard says, yes. Did you ever say you heard the pan hit the wall? You didn't see it? She said, I don't recall. Then Diddy's lawyer says, would you agree with me? It has been hard for you to keep your story straight with respect to this egg incident. Don Richard says, I told it as close as I could. The day after you saw Mr. Combs, people go missing. Yes, she says. So Diddy's telling people go missing. Then Combs' lawyer says, let's do to your interview on March 18th, 2025. You did not say anything about Mr. Combs told you people go missing. Don Richards, I don't recall that. Then he says, no worries. I'm going to show you the document for parties only. Page 5. Isn't it true the first time you said, this was a week ago, would you like me to show you the previous interviews? Don Richards says, I know what I said. And he says, you said Mr. Combs made a death threat. One that you didn't recall 7 times. Mr. Combs' lawyer says, let's move to the alleged incident about the Central Park concert. You were aware there was a camera crew? Don Richards says, not in the bathroom. Westmoreland says, you were filmed in the park. You were aware if the video has been turned over? She says, no. Westmoreland says, about the guns, you didn't tell the prosecutors about it. I saw guns at Diddy's house. Don Richards says, they didn't ask. Westmoreland says, you never saw Mr. Combs pull a gun and wave it around, loaded bullets and cock it? She says, he just had it. Let's see. Did you tell the government you never saw Mr. Combs do cocaine? I don't recall. Your testimony has changed on quite a few things. She says, the time as progresses, I remember more as time goes on. You saw one stop to sell drugs. You saw him take the money? Yes, she says. All right, 1 second. Didn't you tell the government you never saw anyone pay him? So you lied, right? She says, no. Judge sidebar. Back on the sidebar. Combs' lawyer says, it was you reached out to Mr. Combs to work with him again? She says, yes. But he had threats against you. He had threatened you, right? You asked him to work with you again? She says, yes. She says, okay. It says, the songs you released on your own have not really reached the level which you released with Danity Kane or Diddy Dirty Money, right? She says, true. And you reached to Mr. Combs to try to make more money, right? She says, yes. Then they do another sidebar. Back from the sidebar, it says, government, redirect. Why did you file your civil suit? She says, when I worked for Sean Combs, I had no sleep in the conditions. Government. In every meeting with the government, did you say Mr. Combs beat Miss Ventura? He says, yes. She says, yes, the government says, why did you reach out to Mr. Combs? Don Richards says, one of the judge of making the band, Lurianne Gibson, I wanted to reach out. Combs' lawyer, objection, sustained. Okay, then it says, how often did you hear from Mr. Combs after you left Diddy Dirty Money? Don Richards says, sporadically. And then the government says, why did you reach out? She says, to help Kalina Harper. No further questions. All right. Hold on 1 sec. Damn, they're really coming for her career in here. They're like, you couldn't do anything. All right. So then we get to, Carrie Morgan's going to come in. All right. So Carrie Morgan's in. This is Cassie's best friend, the white girl, right? She got hit by Diddy. So government says the jury comes back in. They left and come back in. The government calls Carrie Morgan. Where do you live? She says, Los Angeles. And this is Carrie Morgan says, who is this? Carrie Morgan says, this is me and Cassie in a picture. What's your relationship? We were best friends. Her boyfriend assaulted me. Government, do you see him in here? Carrie Morgan says, yes, in a yellow sweater. Government says, let's let the record reflect. The witness had identified defendant Sean Combs. Government, why are you here? Carrie Morgan, I got a subpoena. Government, where did you live with Cassie? Morgan says, Manhattan. Did Cassie drink? Not much. Government, any drugs? None. Government, why was she drinking? What was she doing for work? Carrie says, modeling. The record she recorded me and you. When did you learn they were dating? 2007. Did you travel with Cassie and Mr. Combs? Carrie says, yes, Ibiza, Miami. Government, what drugs did Mr. Combs provide? Molly and marijuana and ecstasy, she says. Government, what did Mr. Combs take? Morgan says, all. Did you take drugs alone with Cassie? Morgan says, opioids. How did Mr. Combs react? Or how did he act? Carrie says, he would yell at Cassie. She lost her confidence big time. Lost her spark. Did Mr. Combs talk down to Cassie? She says, yes, about her looks, who she talked to. Did he contact you looking for her? Morgan says, a lot. Carrie Morgan says, sometimes he would call 50 times in a row. Government, what others call you from him? What others call you from him? Yes, she called me Christina Coram or KK. Government, did you witness assaults? Morgan says, yes. First in the Hollywood Hills. Ruben, one of the security guards, was there. The government, did Mr. Combs, what did Mr. Combs do to Cassie? Carrie says he kicked her. What did she do? Nothing. I told Ruben to do something he indicated he wouldn't. Government says, then what? Morgan says, we left the house. Cassie and I were hiding by someone's front steps. Government. And then the next time, Carrie Morgan says, in Jamaica, I saw him dragging her by her hair. I ran to get my purse and my phone so we could leave. Government, what did you see next? Carrie Morgan says, I thought she was knocked out. Then she got up and ran into the wooded area. What happened next? Government says, there were 2 golf carts in the driveway. I got in one and Sean got in the other. We went in different directions looking for Cassie. Did you find her? Yes. Then we hid in a ditch whispering. What about the incident at Comstock apartment? Carrie Morgan says, Cassie came back with a hoodie covering her face. Then Sean came and tried to get in, hitting the door with a hammer. I called D-Rock. D-Rock's like a constant thing in this, huh? D-Rock witnessed a lot of stuff and didn't say anything. Government says, did he get in? Morgan says, no. Then the police came. Government, what happened? Carrie Morgan, Cassie wouldn't show them her ID and nothing happened. They left a card. Government says, read this message. Did you send this attachment? Morgan says, yes, a photo card. The detective left. AO say, did Mr. Combs ever assault you? She says, yes, he hit me with a wood coat hanger and choked me. Government, where did the hanger he hit you? Behind my right ear. What did he express concern about? Morgan, who Cassie was cheating on him with. Who did you speak about? Ryan, Sean's old assistant. What did he do? Morgan says, nothing. I have spoken with Cassie. I have not spoken with Cassie since. Then they take a break. With jury out for lunch, arguments continue. With your best citation, try to get the evidence in. AUSA puts all these dockets in. Diddy's lawyers say they haven't seen these things before. Back from a brief lunch, the judge let this Miss Ventura could be recalled as a witness. If I let this in, Miss Ventura could be recalled a witness. Government says, I doubt that we would call her. Judge says the defense could call her back on the stand. Government says, I doubt that she would be available. The judge says the evidence is out then. I anticipate Mr. David James would be the next witness. How is he relevant? Government says, as to the means and methods of enterprise, Mr. Combs threatening to assault employees. While waiting for the jury to come back in, here is court. Georgia lawyer Nicole Moreland. Georgia lawyer Nicole Westmoreland, as she cross-examined Don Richard this morning, courtesy. Okay, this is someone like it's a painting. Then the jury re-enters, and then they quickly. I think this will be quick. They cross-examine Miss Morgan from Combs' side. You were Miss Ventura's best friend since 2004? Actually, 2001, we met waiting for Polaroids to develop. I was living in Buffalo. She was in Connecticut. Okay, so we're going to pick this up because they keep breaking and coming back. And there's just not enough because they broke and then came back. So it took this is pretty much up to date. We'll pick this cross-examination up because they're going to establish a whole background and this with Cassie and her best friend, and they're going to try to put some holes in her story, probably accuse her of some things, whatever. So we'll get into that. D-Rock is a spooky person, bro. He's been around for 20 years just witnessing Diddy, more than that, but I think he's at a solid position for about 25 years. And just watch Diddy just destroy people. If anything, I think D-Rock's kind of an accomplice in certain issues. But anyways, it's Jordan Tower with JT News. Smash that like button. Please leave a comment, and I'll check you guys in the next one.